summer of 1972, and my 7-year-old face is plastered to the window, looking out at the world with wonder, anticipation, and abject terror. You see, my parents, my 2 sisters, and I have piled into our family's puke green country squire station wagon for an epic cross-country road trip, and we have just crossed the border into the great state of Oklahoma. And there is one thing that everybody has been telling me about the great state of Oklahoma, and one thing that I am sure that I am going to see when I am there, and that is a tornado. And amazingly, while we are there, we see not a single fucking tornado. No death, no destruction, no mayhem. I am disappointed. But what I know is that that experience was an early catalyst for my lifelong love of traveling, and I've had many amazing experiences. I was once served a moose heart omelet just a stone's throw from the Arctic Circle. I partied at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow during the Cold War. I once visited a nun museum in Quebec. Who knew Canadian nuns would be so thrilling? But as much as I love traveling, weirdo that I am, I really love transportation. I am a sucker for looking out the window and watching the world go by. I am endlessly curious about the stories behind the people and the places that I see on the other side of the glass. Case in point, it is summer 1987, early morning, and I am on a train barreling through the Spanish countryside somewhere near the Portuguese border. And exhausted from a horrible night of sleep, I step out of the crowded train compartment into the corridor, and I press my nose against the glass to watch the sunrise. But as the train whistle blares and my vision comes into focus, I find myself staring into the 19th century. Standing there at a dirt road rail crossing, next to her donkey cart, is an ancient leather-faced old woman. And for just a split second, our eyes lock together. And then she's gone. And the contrast of history, technology, and privilege nearly paralyzes my brain. I think, who the hell am I to interrupt her life in this massive, stinking, loud hulk of iron? She still haunts me. Another case in point. It is a cold night in San Francisco in 1992, and I am piled into a car with a bunch of my buddies somewhere out in the Richmond district, a block off of Geary. And as we round the corner, I see this beautiful young woman standing at the curb. And I see her, and she sees me, and time stands still. And then she raises her shirt and flashes me. And I say, did you guys see that? She flashed me. And they just start laughing at me like they don't believe me. They're too excited about a hot tip on a party that they just got. And I will tell you, I remember nothing about that evening except I remember her. I have so many questions. Who was she? What did she want? Is she okay? Is she related to the lady with the donkey cart? One more case in point is every flight I've ever taken. I will sell my soul for a window seat. I will sell your soul for a window seat. I will give up the naming rights to my own children in exchange for a window seat. I am sorry, girls. I'm just so fascinated. It's a compulsion. It's kind of like an illness. I'll look out there and go, oh, there's my old summer camp. That's the cabin where I'm not going to tell you that one. Or I'm flying to visit my wife's family, and I'm like, honey, there's your mom's house. I think she's waving. Or there's a time when I was flying to Europe taking the polar route, and I look outside and I see ice. And I spend the next half hour looking for polar bears from 32,000 feet. One time in the mid-90s on a flight, I don't remember where, per usual, my nose is glued to the window. And I hear, "Sir, sir, excuse me, sir." And finally I whip my head around and there's a really nice young woman and she says, "Are you okay?" And I think, well, I was okay until you interrupted my important work here. She was worried that I seemed despondent. But here's the deal. All of these experiences culminate in one single seminal experience that begins in the shining metropolis of Cleveland, Ohio. Now, as a kid from California, I never imagined that I would be spending so much time in Cleveland. But you see, my dear wife, Nancy, is youngest of 10, and most all of them are still there in the greater Cleveland area. And so it is late July of the year 2000, and we have been there for 3 weeks. And I am done. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my in-laws and I love Cleveland, right, honey? But the deal is I need to get back to start a new school year. So the plan is Nancy is going to stay and visit her family for longer and fly back, and I get to drive back. And this is beautiful. This is amazing. I love driving. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to make it in one day, straight shot back to Davis, California. I know it. And that first day, I almost make it to Omaha, okay? Make it to Omaha, because I kind of got a late start. But the next morning, it is go time. I am up before sunlight, getting ready, and I am in the car, and there is just a hint of light on the eastern horizon. Now, there are 2 things that you need to know about this day ahead. One is that it's I-80 all the way back to Davis, California. And the other thing is that this particular stretch of Interstate 80 through Nebraska is flat and featureless. There is literally nothing out there except asphalt, corn, and sky. So I get on the road and I am immediately in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I am so focused. I'm going to make it back to California. This is great. But as we've already pointed out, I am essentially genetically predisposed to noticing stuff. So eventually there's a farmhouse, but I see this sizable ceramic garden gnome with a wry smile and a little jaunty outfit, and I look at him and I think, gnome. And then I'm back in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation, nothing's going to stop me. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I have no idea how much time passes. Couple of hours, couple of minutes, a couple of months. I am, as I said, in the zone. But again, eventually things catch my eye, and I notice there's another farmhouse. But in particular, they have this life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree, and he's got a little kerchief. And I look and I think, cowboy. And I'm back in the zone. Nothing will deter me. Interstate vehicular meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I'm driving, and time is meaningless. It is just a construct. I begin to daydream. I think maybe I'll start a church. the New Age Church of the Most Holy Interstate. Or something like that. I'm still working on the name. And I'm driving, and eventually, I see in the distance, on the horizon, this amazingly neon electric yellow house. And I look and I think, wow, that is a yellow house. But I'm back in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. I'm driving. But there's one thing that being in the zone is not going to help with, and that's my bladder. So eventually, I need to find an exit. And sure enough, eventually I find one, and I pull off, and I make a pit stop and get some food. I fill up with gas, and I am back on the interstate. It's like I'm a Formula One driver. I mean, that took me, 10 minutes. And as before I am in the zone, I am driving, I'm wondering about my church and the membership to my church, and I'm thinking I'm going to be home back in California in no time. This is my goal. And interestingly, I see another neon electric yellow house, and I look at it and I think, yellow paint must have been on sale. And I keep driving. I'm back in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. I'm driving. And I'm going to be back in California in no time at this rate. And oddly, I then, a little bit later, see another life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree. And I think, wow. Those cowboys are really popular here in Nebraska. But I am back in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation, I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. Because I'm going to make it back to California. And then, don't you know it, I see another sizable garden gnome. With a wry smile and a jaunty outfit, and I think, man, that little guy is super similar to the one that I saw much earlier this morning, except the one that I saw this morning was on the other side of the interstate. There is something that I haven't yet mentioned here. I need to head back to California to start a new school year teaching geography. That's right. I teach geography, maps, navigation. And so in this moment, I am freaking out. I am beside myself, apoplectic. All I want is to see a sign that says 80 west, 80 west, 80 west. And there's nothing out there. There's no exits. I don't have a phone that has GPS. I have a stupid little Nokia phone. Nothing. And I'm dying inside. And I think, wait a minute. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to science this. Because what I know is that stretch of Interstate 80 goes directly east-west, and I know that I'm about 40 degrees north of the equator, and I know that in late July the sun is hovering over about 14 degrees north of the equator, so I start to do some calculations, and I adjust for time zones, and I adjust for daylight savings, and what I know is that if I am driving the right way, I am driving westward back toward California, I'm going to find the sun right back over my left shoulder, right about there. And it's not there. And if I am driving the wrong way, back toward the shining metropolis of Cleveland, Ohio, the sun is going to be off to my right about where I see it. So I have just used my laser-sharp intellect to determine that I have been driving the wrong way on Interstate 80 probably for hours. I am crushed. I am demoralized. This is horrible and embarrassing and humiliating. And finally I find an exit. And I pull off and I drive over the overpass and I head back out onto that stretch of Interstate 80 for the third time that day. And I drive past that damn stupid effing little garden gnome. Then I pass that mother effing cowboy. And I pass that ungodly, stupid yellow house. And eventually I need to pull off and take a break, and I find an exit, and I pull into the same gas station that I had pulled into earlier that morning, and I fill up an entire tank of gas. People, I have just driven an entire tank of gas to nowhere. You ready for this? I have driven 160 miles in the wrong direction and back. Now, to say that this is embarrassing or demoralizing, it doesn't even scratch the surface. I am personally and professionally crushed about this. This is so embarrassing. What I need is that tornado to just come and put me out of my misery. And honestly, I really have no idea how I got home. Somehow I got home, and somewhere in there I call and I check in with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to make better time." Yeah, so did I. I don't even tell her. It takes me a week to admit this to my own wife. And I go on, I hide this from everyone. I do not tell this story for years. But several years go by, and one day I'm in my classroom and I am teaching about the position of the sun as it changes during the seasons in the course of the day. And I think that story would be a really good object lesson. So I proceed to tell my students on that day this story. And when I am done, their jaws drop. And they howl with laughter, because it turns out they really like to see their professor look like a fool. But they also really like their professor to be just a little more human and a little more relatable and a little more approachable. And this experience has served me well. I have joyfully told this story to my students many times. And it has been such a great reminder to own my mistakes, to learn to laugh at myself, and to never take myself too seriously. But just a month or two ago, as I was thinking about telling this story to all of you, I had this epiphany. And that is that for me, this story is such a great metaphor for storytelling. I realize that the power, the beauty, and the joy of sharing one's story with others comes from summoning the courage to invite others along for the ride and to ask them to look out the window together. And so to all of you, I say thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I hope you enjoyed the view.